I had to get a little show curtain action in there today. Comment if you know what design this is from. An iconic American design from one of the greatest American scenic designers. Welcome to show number 4 of the Creative Quarantine Sessions. I'm Alexander Whittenberg, and I'll be your host today. Caryn Novak is watching from home. Hello, Caryn. And thanks, as always, to our composer, Nathan Avakian, and Mr. Alan Dolinka, our technical director. The guest that we have today is a very exciting guest indeed, who has worked in so many areas of the entertainment industry. David Gallo is an award-winning scenic and production designer and visual storyteller. In normal circumstances, his work can be seen daily in more than a dozen cities worldwide. David has designed over 30 Broadway plays and musicals. Among these titles, you'll find The Drowsy Chaperone, for which he won the Tony Award, Thoroughly Modern Millie, Memphis, First Date, Company, Xanadu, The Mountaintop, and Stickfly. He's collaborated with a number of directors on their first foray into theater, including Al Pacino, Jerry Seinfeld, and Jerry Lewis. He joined the Sesame Street family for season 46, creating the first new sets in over 40 years. For this work, he was recognized with 2 Daytime Emmy Awards for Outstanding Art Direction, Set Decoration, and Scenic Design. He acts as a creative director for the jam band Fish on their annual New Year's Eve concert spectaculars in Madison Square Garden, where he provides a complete vision for every aspect of the experience, from concept and creative development to design, choreography, and execution. As a core member of celebrated playwright August Wilson's creative team from 1996 until Mr. Wilson's death, David designed the premiere productions of Wilson's later works, including King Hedley II, Jitney, Gem of the Ocean, and Radio Golf, the latter 2 of which he garnered him a Tony Award nomination for Best Scenic Design. He's still very much a part of the August Wilson family as he continues to adjudicate the annual National August Wilson Monologue Competition. Collaborators in the realm of family entertainment include DreamWorks, Nickelodeon, PBS, Disney, and Scholastic. His work for Blue Man Group has been enjoyed by millions the world over, and as of yesterday, the Netflix comedy special Jerry Seinfeld 23 Hours to Kill is available for streaming. Now, we're going to bring David on in just a moment, but before we do, we'd like to share this wonderful video that David and his partner Vivica put together for creativity and confidence with children during the quarantine. So Alan, go ahead and roll that clip for us.
Yeah, I can tell you, you're the sun can tell you, yeah. You need love now just as much as I do. And I want to give it to you. You need love now just as much as I do. Now give love when it's up to you. Arthur, come on.
All right.
So should I smile?
Alrighty.
Just give it a nice warm look. Good. Perfect.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, please welcome today's guest, Mr. David Gallo. Hey, David.
Everybody. All right, we're good? We're good.
We're good. We're good. Thank you for joining us.
Sure. Glad to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, that video is great because it showcases, certainly it's sort of the epitome of staying creative in quarantine, but also combines Vivica's background of the circus and your theatrical background to come together and make that, which is great fun.
Yeah, you know, that video was really clever because they called us and they're like, all right, you know, can you make this video? And there wasn't a lot of instruction, right? And so what I did was something that I've actually called for years, I call it an Apollo 13, after that great scene in the movie Apollo 13 where people build an oxygen scrubber out of whatever's left, you know, whatever they have on board the spaceship, right?
Yeah.
So I made that stuff out of just we had in the studio because that's what you got to do right now, right? You can't go out and get anything. And so
Absolutely.
It was kind of like cool, but the reality of it was I actually only made it out of stuff that was already on my desk, except for the Campbell's soup can and a couple of other minor products. Now, you might not believe it, but I actually do keep a fog machine and a mirror ball on my desk at all times. So, yeah, everything there was just made out of what we had in the spaceship.
So it sounds like in your studio, the mirror ball and the fog machine are just as important as the pencil and paper, right?
Well, yeah, I act everything out. Like, you know, one of the things I do is just perform. You know, one of the reasons I think I had to have a private studio early on was because I had to have a place that I could act like an idiot. No one could see me. So, yeah, I have props and things that inspire me or things that are left over from other stuff. It's not even really nostalgia. Most of that's actually put away. It's things that I use, you know, and we'll get to that stuff later on. But yeah, that's why the idea for the video came from, was like, how can we, you know, basically coming up with an idea so I didn't have to talk.
Mm-hmm.
You know? Andrew Lloyd Webber speaks very well, and so his video, I couldn't compete, so I didn't want to have to talk.
Right. Well, you wax poetic in other ways.
That's right.
So let's go back to the beginning, to the early beginnings. Can you speak to your childhood and what sort of inspired you to go down this route of theatrical, this theatrical trajectory, I should say?
Yeah, you know, it's funny. The beginning was actually crystal clear. I had a great interest in art and I guess, you know, books from a very early age. My mother was in many ways, she was a social warrior of her time, and she prescribed literature, you know, more than most. And so we did a lot of reading when we were kids. And so I had a real affinity, my whole family, for the genre of science fiction. And so we went to see this new movie, and it was called Star Wars. And that film just sort of changed everything for me. I was the perfect Star Trek generation. I think I was 12, something like that, when it came out. Vivica, 1966, 11. So you guys are going to get introduced to Vivica in a couple of minutes. So I saw the film Star Wars, and it was the first time in my life that I had seen an entire world, artificial world created. And it just seemed, you know, believable. And so I was intrigued by the film on so many levels, but the production design. And then a really interesting thing happened is that George Lucas, to promote the film, released the production design, you know, paperwork, archives. And so you could see developmental sketches or the work of Ralph McQuarrie, who like Sid Mead for Blade Runner, were just these brilliant artists that were hired just to toss around ideas. So there was this movie, and now all of a sudden there were these sketches. And so then this book comes out, and it's these books start coming out, and they hold like the drafting, the models, the photographs, so many sketches. It's ridiculous, by all the different people in an art department that work on a film of that scale. And that's a lot of people. You know, it's not like theater where there's a set designer and somebody builds a model and somebody drafts it, that kind of thing. But you know, a film like that, a design, involves many people who do real serious design work. So I thought, wow, look at this. There's people that make these fake worlds. And so that's where my obsession for that began. And then I wasn't able to do that. I made Super 8 films and animated films and all that stuff. But you can't really make movies in 1977. So when you're, 11, 12. So I discovered theater, and I met a mentor, and I switched over to theater basically, and started creating those worlds on stage, and started exploring that, and circled back around to film and TV, years later.
I know that your path led you to the Conservatory of Theater Arts at Purchase College for a while, where I also attended. So what were some of your experiences there when you had a chance to really kind of dive into the mechanics of focusing in a studio on designing? Of course, you had your inspiration from early on with the Star Wars books and all that, and now you're at a place where you can kind of hone in on your craft and start to look at the specifics of that a little more, right?
Yeah, when I arrived at Purchase, I had years of being really immersed in technical theater. I'd done summer stock. I'd done a lot of self-study. 1 year I did summer stock at a university, and technically, even though I was a young teenager, I was faculty because I was the intern or apprentice or whatever. And so I had a teacher's library card, and I just started checking out all these books about theater and design and watching films in their film library and all of that stuff. So I had experience in that world. And then I also got technical craft, model building and all of that, because I've been building models my whole life. And I learned how to draft by stealing drawings out of literally, this is the true story, by stealing rolls of drawings out of dumpsters near theaters, at strikes or load-ins, and studying them and trying to unlock that mystery. So that was my experience already when I got it Purchase. I remember I saw my evaluation for my interview, and they wrote, he can draft a bit, and actually in this filing cabinet right over here are the two very first draftings that I've ever done in my entire life.
Oh, what were they for?
The funny thing happened on the way to the forum, but we're not going to look at those today.
Okay.
I'll post them on the internet, though. They're pretty funny.
Nice. We'll do another hour on that later.
Sure. I can do an hour on that.
Hang on, I'm going to test something real quick with my audio. Better? Does this sound good?
That sounds worse, actually.
Okay, hang on.
Well, no, it sounds fine to me. I mean, I guess it's just you and me. I keep thinking there's other people on the line, but it's just us.
Well, all right. There are other people in the ether.
I understand there's an audience of thousands right now, but my phone has run out of digits. But yeah, okay.
You're very modest with the number. I'd say we're somewhere in the millions, but
I don't. Listen, the internet means nothing to me. But that video you just played, did you see how many plays that thing has?
I didn't actually check the number, but I'm sure it's up there.
Over 600,000, and it's going up dramatically every hour.
Wow!
It only dropped like a few days ago.
Well, congratulations! You've officially gone viral.
And I looked it up. Viral's 5 million hits a day.
Oh, is that right?
So everybody out there, just keep replaying my video just over and over again.
And then YouTube starts to send you trophies or whatever at a certain point, right?
Yeah.
So funny enough, one of the first times that we met was actually at Purchase. You came to speak when I was a student there. And afterwards, you were walking through the studios, and we found a plate of your drawings for Angels in America. So like you had found inspiration from digging up drawings out of the dumpster, you in turn actually inspired a generation of designers at Purchase by having your Angels draftings there. And I remember you were surprised to see them. And one piece in particular was a Star is Born marquee from that original design that I know you have an interesting tidbit about that piece of scenery, right?
Yeah, what's funny about that is wow. I give Rachel Maddow answers. Like, so you got to throw it. My partner Vivek is a juggler. She's gonna throw balls or clubs at my head when I do these Rachel Maddow stories and go on too long. But the distinction of that particular piece of scenery was that it was the very first thing that was cut on the CNC router at Hudson Scenic. They had just gotten it, and they were like, "How does this thing work?" And I was the test piece. And that one piece, and watching that thing operate, that thing changed everything. I mean, that made the most expensive kind of scenery you could design turn it into the cheapest. I just changed everything. But yeah, that's what the marquee was cut that way. And those plans, that show was actually one of the last shows that we did by hand, drafted by hand. No, I think we went on a little longer than that.
And we'll get to this in a moment, but I know that the handcraft is still something that's very important to you in your process.
Yeah.
After college, you worked on some music videos and stuff, is that right?
I did, but nothing of any consequence. Back then, this is no kidding. Like, you would get a telephone call for a music video, and they didn't know if they were going to shoot in a studio or under the Brooklyn Bridge. And the call would come in on Friday, and the shoot would be Monday. Like, it was that crazy back then. So yeah, I did music videos. What I did a lot of was corporate drug sales videos, which were I made a lot of good money for that. And I used to do videos for the Merrill Lynch Video Network. There's actually a TV studio in that giant building downtown.
Huh.
Yeah. The entire 38th floor was scenery storage.
Wow. No, that's crazy.
Yeah, but it was fun because the videos were actually really silly. We built Frankenstein's lab, and we built like westerns, and they were all just like silly time machines.
And that was all a pretty quick turnaround too, right?
Yeah, it was really fast, but it was Merrill Lynch. They had a lot of money back then.
Yeah.
They liked it.
And then you were doing a lot of downtown theater. I know one show in particular that sort of put you on a map in some regards was Bunny Bunny with Gilda Radner, right?
Yeah. There's probably two shows of the most significance for career moves. One was what turned out to be my first one, which was Mackinac, that originally played it was originally a Naked Angels production on 16th Street. And then moved to the public, and it was a groundbreaking production in a lot of ways, and I got some recognition for that. And that elevated me rapidly to a certain level, and then the next level came from Bunny Bunny, which was 1997. So 89 was the first bump. I had just gotten out of school when I had the first actually big hit, and then 97. This is from Bunny Bunny right here. Hold on. I'm going to flip.
Yeah.
Wait, did I do that?
Yeah, we're good. We can see it.
Oh, well, you just put them apart. Yeah, this is what is in the video. Duh. Yeah, that's the false proscenium. And then
That's
this
awesome.
was my first of many grossly overscale fullness curtains. Yeah.
Oh, the joys of.
I have. Hold on a second again, and it's fucking everything up. I'm sorry, I mean it's
You're good.
I like very, very high fringe. I'm certain, if not Broadway, in the entire history of the world, I believe that I have the tallest fringe in the history of curtains, and that was it was 11 and a half feet high, I think it was, and each strand was like yo big.
Wow.
And the thickness of the curtain, the fullness of the curtain was 3 feet. 3 feet deep. And do you know how big the proscenium arch was for a curtain that huge?
I don't know. Tell me.
It was the Helen Hayes Theater, so it was 16 feet high by like 25 feet wide.
Oh, wow.
Great.
The smallest,
Yeah.
the smallest house on Broadway.
Yeah, it's like tiny. Hold on a second. Sorry.
You're good.
Right now. I just thought of this too. This is actually from that show.
Oh,
Can I see full frame? Me full frame?
yeah. There we
Oh
go.
yeah. So yeah, these wait, I gotta just do it and then hold it up. Fuck. I mean, shoot. Yeah. Now these are columns. So when that like curtain that in order for it to be scale would have been 800 feet high. When the curtain goes up, these are a half-inch scale. So that tiny little proscenium, these are these monolithic, pieces. Anyway, it was a play about extras during a biblical epic, and so all the scenery was ridiculously overscale.
Was that the Kathleen Turner collaboration, or?
Kathleen Turner. No, that was my first Jerry Zaks, shtick show.
What show was that?
It was called Epic Proportions.
Epic Proportion.
Yeah, really, really funny. Yeah, it was just like, I mean, the things that we had Kristen Chenoweth like shackled to chains, and the smallest links were at her wrist, and then there was forced perspective. I love talking to designers because I don't have to explain what those things are. So the first shackle goes off, and then the very last one is like the size of a Buick. Like, I'm not kidding. Chain, the actual links of chain built beautifully by Showman fabricators back in the day. It was amazing.
Oh, that's fun. Speaking of
funny,
a collaborator that you've worked with in the past and recently collaborated with again, Jerry Seinfeld. Can you speak to your first collaboration with Jerry and how your relationship has formed onto this latest project?
Sure. Yeah, whenever possible, I'd like to see the wide view. I know it's weird, but I need to see myself. If that's all right.
Makes
Thank you.
sense.
Jerry Seinfeld. Yeah, you know what happened years ago, a few years ago. Oh my God, it's this poster right here. That's pure coincidence. His name's on that poster. Yeah, I got a phone call from a producer friend that said that they were producing this new show. And I said, great, who's the director? And they said, well, it's Jerry Seinfeld. And I said, the director. And they were like, yeah. And I said, okay, whatever. So what it turned out to be was there was a Broadway play that was called Long Story Short, and it was written by Jerry Seinfeld and Colin Quinn. And it was moving uptown, and it didn't have a set of any kind in downtown. And then but they were like, first two things happened. Sorry. One was that they had a meeting with Jerry Seinfeld, the writers, and he said, who's going to direct it? And Jerry didn't want to deal with another person. So he was like, well, I'm going to direct it, because they just didn't want to deal with anybody else. But actually, Hal Brooks was brought in to help a brilliant director, and helped a great deal. So I'm going to say the show didn't have a director, but it had one of those people that helps out, especially with every director. I'm not going to explain all that, but you can understand what I'm getting at. But Hal did great work. But anyway, so Jerry's like, well, I don't want a director because I don't have to deal with another person. And then they were like, you got to have a set. And he's like, oh my God. So they hired me, and it was really great. It was a fantastic collaboration. The difficulty originally was that the producers tried to mediate between me and Mr. Seinfeld, and they would talk to me, and then they would talk to him, and then he would talk to me. I didn't get that. I was just like, what is this? But sure. And it was happening quickly, And then what happened was eventually I said, this isn't working. And I said, I said, we got to have a meeting in my studio. And so they said, okay. And so Seinfeld shows up at the studio, and not this one. It was actually a smaller studio, a little bit smaller. And he shows up, and there's like 1 million people there. Like, everybody even remotely involved with the production all decided that they had to come to the first meeting between the set designer and the director writer. And I show him a model, and he sits down, and he is not happy. And when Jerry Seinfeld's not happy, you know it. And so he's just sitting there looking at this thing, and he starts fuming. But he doesn't get mad. He's just like, he's Jerry Seinfeld pissed off. You know what I mean? So anyway, he says, why am I looking at the same thing? I don't understand. He goes, you can't be funny on that stage. You can't be funny on that stage. Now I'm listening to every word he says, because of course this guy is a comedy genius, and he knows what he's talking about. You know what I mean? Like, seriously. So I'm just sitting there, I'm crushed, because I'm like, oh, I thought it was funny. So it's a terrible meeting in every way. And what had happened was he had obviously rejected these ideas the first time. They were sketches, and the producers encouraged me to get to model form. It's just one of those things. So I said to him, I just grabbed him. I said, look, come back here tomorrow, and I will make sure nobody's here, and we'll have a conversation. And he came the next day, and we had a fantastic collaboration from that point forward. And I did the scenery and the projections. So
Wonderful.
it was a great collaboration. And he actually, he said something to me that is worth repeating. Is that at the opening night party, he said to me, he made it clear through the whole process that there was a hierarchy to show business, and he considered theater somewhere down with dogfighting. You know what I mean? Like he did not have a whole lot of use for theater. He just didn't see it in the way that some of us who love it do. And so he says to me, in the opening night party, I'll never do theater again. I never did it before. I'm not doing it in the future. I'm never going to do this again. But he said, but that day in your office when we talked and about ideas and all that, he said, I finally understood why the people who do it. And I was blown away by that, because it was like he got something that he didn't care to do again, but he got what we do,
Wow.
and I thought that was really cool.
Well,
Anyway,
you made a poetic impression on him.
I guess so. I don't know. Like, he called me, years later. He actually called me like 2 years after that gig, and then I called him back, and I never heard from him. I was like, oh yeah, you returned the phone call. I always wondered what happened. Get me Gallo, but he did yell, get me. He did a little more than a year ago. He did yell, get me Gallo, and that was for the Netflix special that we spent the next year on, and just opened on Netflix yesterday. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a beautiful mid-century modern design that you brought to the Beacon Theater.
Yeah, it's cool. I mean, we've been putting pictures of it up on social media, and we're going to actually put probably a lot of the design documentation. But we just started putting some stuff up so people can see it if they want to do that. We met in his office, which is all mid-century modern, the first meeting, and he was like mid-century. And so I did a lot of research on Palm Springs and Las Vegas. He wanted it classy, and he's a classic funny man. He has extraordinary taste, and it's amazing, and you get the way that he's used to working when you look at his watch, and you understand that this is a guy who, just one look at these watches and you get the kind of dude this is, and who you're dealing with, how you have to serve this. And so he said mid-century, and he said, sort of, I guess well, that was really what he said. And so I brought back a series of research ideas and such that led it toward kind of like Las Vegas or Palm Springs in the late 50s, early 60s, a sort of rat packy thing. And over the course of those meetings, I showed him, everything changed when I showed him a picture of Frank Sinatra getting on board a helicopter with holding a highball, which is alcoholic beverage in the term in the 50s. But he's like getting on a helicopter like this drink. And so Jerry loved that picture so much that we just sat there together and jammed and came up with the whole idea of jumping out of a helicopter and then unzipping the scuba suit and stepping out of it from like the James Bond movie. It's all that crazy stuff.
That's great. And the scuba suit has ties to your personal interests as well. I know that you are sort of very passionate about diving as well.
Yeah, I do a lot of diving, and that's why the hold on, let me see if I can flip again. The diving, because the logo, the David Gallo design logo, is around here somewhere.
There we go.
Here, and so that guy actually started out as a hazmat suit stuck on the bathrooms at Blue Man Group, but it evolved into a scuba diver because my love of diving. Yeah, this is just junk I've taken out of shipwrecks.
Wow.
Yeah, just crap you find in submarines.
Now, I know that you are occasionally mistaken for another David Gallo that is very much a part of the kind of marine life world as well. Scientist David Gallo.
Yeah, hold on. Did I screw up the... Wait, hold on. I think I screwed up the sound here.
We can hear you. Can you hear me?
Hold on.
Standing by.
Oh, yeah, hold on. Yeah, there's a dude that we call the other David Gallo. Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Great. Yeah, there's a guy that we call the other David Gallo, and then he calls me the other David Gallo. And he's an interesting guy. He's a scientist. He is the head of the Woodsole Institute for like marine research. So he's like literally a guy who like dives like the Titanic for real, and then comes back and then talks at TED about it. So we used to get each other's emails all the time. And one year I got invited to speak at a conference, and I got sent plane tickets to go talk to a bunch of scientists. And I was so tempted to head to the airport, like free trip to Vegas, show up, stand on the stage, and just talk about technical scuba diving off the coast of Ireland, which they would have thrown me out for. But anyway, so I contacted Mr. Gallo, and I said, my name's David Gallo too. And he said, yeah, I get your shit. So I was like, great. So we kind of got to know each other.
That's great. I wanted to quick address Christina from YouTube, who's asking where you can see the Jerry Seinfeld show. That is on Netflix, available for streaming on Netflix, called Jerry Seinfeld, 23 Hours to Kill.
Yeah, man. Sorry, I walk around.
You're good.
I keep moving because I don't know why.
It's good to see the studio space. And you have a fair bit of space there to kind of spread out during quarantine and mess around and try different things, right?
Yeah, man. It's like, I guess, I mean, what we do a lot here. I'm going to say 360. We do a lot of different things here. We design shows and TV shows and stuff, and we, can actually have the facility to move furniture away and do photo shoots, which I do a lot of, and we can rehearse little things in here. And like I say, I have room to jump around and pretend to be a rock star.
That's great. Yeah, which I know is an important part of your process if you're designing a musical or a rock show, to really kind of get into the choreography and play your air guitar, right? Or not even air guitar.
No. You hold on 1 second. Hold that thought. You're in charge of holding thoughts. I'm going to show you something cool. Look at this wood. Wait, hold on. I don't even need the stick. Look at that wood. When we got this place here, there was 6 inches of sheetrock around each one of these things.
Wow.
Yeah, we got rid of it. No, we don't air guitar around here. I actually have had a no air guitar rule.
I was mistaken.
many years. I actually have my guitar right here. Hold on. I'm going to hand this to here. Hold on a second. This is Vivica, who is about to take off her headphones because she's on Facebook, so she's 10 seconds behind. I'm going to hand her the camera.
I can't see you.
Well, look through the thing.
Okay.
Hello, Vivica.
Take it off the thing,
There.
Jake, if you want.
There you
Oh,
go.
yeah, there you go. Okay, so, yes, I want to show you this. Here, come forward. This is my...
I can't come forward.
it's
with a
not
selfie
working.
stick.
I'll take it.
It's okay.
Your T-square guitar.
Yeah, this is actually my guitar that I use to pretend to be a rock star, basically. And what I do, and this is the God's honest truth. Hold on. I'm sorry it gets all Blair Witchy. I actually walk around with this guitar, and I sort of stage rock and roll shows in my head, and then I remember them, and then I make all kinds of documentation that goes along with them, and stage the show. But yeah, all the design, all of that, I have this axe to help me with.
And it really does help you problem solve when you're designing a show, right?
Well, you don't have to do this because you're never going to actually teach a rock star how to do this because that's their job, But if you come up with some weird choreography idea, or if you're just sort of staging, I have this weird ability to visualize stuff in large amounts of detail quickly, and so I can sort of see stuff. And so when I stand center stage, because rock and roll is unlike most performance, rock and roll is designed from the perspective of one place, and that's wherever the lead of the band happens to be standing, and everything around them is really where the perspective that it is designed for. So you have to have a guitar. I used to have a real guitar, but I removed the strings because I didn't want anybody to think that I could actually play guitar when I walked around with it. And then I moved on to a T-square. But it's got little guitar jokes on it. Like if you know anything about Eddie Van Halen's Frankencaster, he has like a cord bolted to the top here. Yeah. So
that's great. I love it. And speaking of
meta guitar detail.
Yes, yes. Well, you always kind of throw those meta details into all the work you do. I know there's always a lot of kind of Wilson or Miller thrown into details of different designs you've done as well. Um,
Wilson or Miller?
well, I remember
Oh, August
specifically you
Wilson?
put, yeah, August Wilson. I remember that you've thrown a few details into your Sesame Street design too, with like the Maxon Fence Company and all that, right?
Yeah, there's a number of August Wilson Easter eggs on the show, but there's about 1,000,000 fish Easter eggs. Um,
Well,
too
let's start
many.
with Fish then, because you were just doing the guitar. Let's talk
Oh
about
yeah.
your annual gig with Fish.
Well, I wouldn't say it's an annual gig. I've done it most of the time over the last 10 years, but to be clear, it's not. I haven't done it every year. I didn't do it this year. Well,
Gotcha.
when you work with a band, it's very important that they remain fresh. I mean, a band, especially, is 4 people. That's the
Right,
creative
right.
hive. You know, that's the creative hive. And I always describe my position with the band as like a distortion pedal. This is the truth. I always thought like, well, what do you do for the band? And you're like, well, they go this New Year's Eve. Let's put our sound through the Dave Gallo pedal, and then then they stomp on that pedal, and then all of a sudden I'm like filtering this one part of the show or one part of the year,
Hmm.
through this prism of distortion, and then they go back to playing however they want to play. So they need to make other sounds, other distortions. Otherwise, what kind of hippie jam band are they? So yeah,
Yeah,
but I mean, we've done a lot. We do a lot of stuff with the band. We've done a lot of stuff with the band. There's a lot of stuff nobody even knows.
yeah. And as a creative director, you're doing everything from design to even choreography and a lot of large
Well, I
scale
do
prop
this.
work.
Yeah. Well, the work on a rock and roll moment like that, or rock and roll in general, is that you are, to an even greater extent than musical theater, you're the extension of the music and a musician, but the musicians and the music itself. So it's like I was saying, it's a very very unique perspective. And when you're doing that, what I like to do is just focus entirely on not doing as many things as I can do myself. I can't even think of a way to describe it, but work with the band directly. I write the idea, which is almost entirely written visually. The story, it's mostly storyboards and
Hmm.
text, never any dialogue. Conceptualize it. I design it only as a matter of course because who else is going to do it? But there's not a lot of design. Last year, the coolest thing I designed was a cool lighting fixture that had never existed before. And I designed this thing we call the fish droid, which is a moving light that shoots fire. And it's really cool. And this is theater. This is like a theater audience, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Check out some pictures on my Facebook of how we did it. You'll figure it out. There's some videos too.
That's
Anyway,
awesome.
but yeah, so it's more of come from here. And so you design it. Now I'm not a choreographer, but like I say, I jump around like a putz with the guitar, and then I go to choreographers and I say, help me figure this out.
Right, right.
Yeah. Or one year it was more of a dance piece, and so we hired these 2 brilliant young choreographers to kind of do a dance piece based on a lot of collaboration.
Hmm.
It's different every year.
We have a question from Marlene Whitney. This might be a hard question to answer because I know how much you love theater and theater history and American theater set design. She asks, what would you value as your best scenic design in American theater?
That question, the best work I've ever done was the props for Beatsville at a solo theater.
Oh, tell us more.
She was the prop master for that.
Ah, very good, very good.
And the props were really, really, really good. What was my favorite show in the American theater?
Yeah, what would you value as your best scenic design in American theater? So maybe what's a piece of work you've done that you value as the best, and what's another piece of someone else's work that you value?
Okay, my own work. What do I think is the best? I don't know. It's very hard to say that. I would say that when I did A View from the Bridge revival, which is in a way the simplest, it would probably be the one that if someday there's a another book about set design, a couple hundred years from now, it says David Gallo, there's a picture of that one. I think that would be cool. That means something, I guess. It'd be my Wikipedia page. So yeah, I hope that one ends up when my Wikipedia page is like a single sentence. Maybe that will be the in the future. Maybe that'll be the only picture.
Well, Arthur Miller's a good one to have there.
Well, that was the weird part about that is I was like, I think I was like 32 or something like that. And you know how weird it is to sit in a meeting rehearsal room with a model, which is around here somewhere. Maybe I threw it away. Anyway, with the model and go to like Arthur Miller, like, A View from the Bridge is a play about, and you're like 32 years old. That model's around here somewhere, I thought. Maybe I threw it away.
You have a beautiful drop on that. The show curtain, right?
Yeah, that was no, it wasn't the show curtain. It was like the whole design was incredibly simple. I mean, it's like this play is this Greek tragedy, right? And
yeah, it is. Yeah.
It just takes place in Red Hook, Brooklyn in the 1950s. So we really wanted to sort of jack up the tragedy part. And the thing was, the director just said, if I could do it, and we would never do this, we should set this show in the middle of President Street. And I was like, well, then let's just do that. And so the design was a circular stage with a surrounding series of stoops, curved stoops. And so what it was, in effect, was a Greek theater. It was just a round playing space, and then the seating. But the seats were basically the stoops, and the audience saw a Greek drama happen in front of them, a Greek tragedy happen in front of them, on these stoops, because the play is about people. Mr. Miller is about a guy who sort of brings his own demise in front of the entire neighborhood. He is exposed, and so having everyone sit around in a circle facing inward was pretty cool. And then the drop was the very first time I did a drop that I've done many times since then and don't have a name for. But the artwork itself is in the Smithsonian, which is really weird. But that painting there's actually two of them. One of them is hanging on my friend Haley's wall, I hope, still. So I gave it to a friend. And then the other one is in the Smithsonian because we did the Broadway show twice. Anyway, that elevation is based on a photograph of the Queen Mary getting launched. See, I don't care. I don't care the appropriateness of something. I could be very, very accurate to period, or when I did a play at the Lorraine Motel, every period, every
beautiful.
Yeah, it was meticulously crafted to be identical to the real place. But View from the Bridge, I saw this picture of the Queen Mary getting launched. It was all blurry and funky. So I was like, I'm doing View from the Bridge next season. I just grabbed it, made a Xerox of it, and then that became that drop. But I painted over it and collaged it and all that other stuff.
There's a lot of kind of on the waterfront vibes with that piece too.
It's very noirish, and that whole set was black. And that's and I say that's the first time I did that kind of drop. It's not actually I've never figured out how to describe this, and it gets screwed up all the time. It's black sprinkler netting, so it's black 1/8-inch scenery netting, and then the black areas are opaque. So it's opaque in the black areas, and it's see-through in the white areas. And so there's a drop of translucency upstage with that, which you light, and then you see this silhouette. And it's very distorted and all that. So I did that for the first time, I think, on a big scale for that play. And then I've done it many times since. I don't have a word for that kind of drop. And like I say, it gets screwed up all the time because people don't understand the white and the black. But I did that idea in my very first Broadway show, now that I think about it.
Wow.
The other weird distinction of View from the Bridge was that the floor was cobblestones, and it was cut by Showman Fabricators, who was their first Broadway show.
Wow.
And they had the CNC, and nobody, wasn't a known thing then. And they cut out all the cobblestones with the CNC. Yeah. But
so you're sort of right there on the nexus of CNC entering the theatrical scenery realm between Hudson and Showman.
Oh yeah, no. Once I saw that thing, I started using it a lot.
Yeah. It's a great tool.
Yeah.
So speaking of Arthur Miller, I know that you've been treating your Facebook followers to sharing collections of your American scenic art from some of the greats. And of course, one of these greats is the great Joe Malziner, who did the original Death of a Salesman Broadway production. And you
Yeah.
have a sketch of his that hangs in your studio.
Yeah, I do. I have. I don't have it here. We have actually another apartment across the hall, where we sort of live some of the time. But they're identical, but they're not together because they're across the hall from each other.
Uh-huh.
It looks like this one, but except the walls are all covered with 20th century set designs. So I don't have any to show, so it's sort of hard to talk about it. But I would just suggest people go to my Facebook, David Gallo Design Facebook, not my David Gallo. And look, because I've posted many examples there. So, yeah, I'm a huge Milziner fan. I see you got the Henderson book behind you.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, yeah. See, again, when I was a wee lad, that book didn't exist. But I come.
Well, there's that other one, Designing for the Theater, which is also amazing.
Which I have. Yeah, I have all of those books too. Yeah, I have quite the devotion to the history of scenic design, like fanaticism. But I wish I could show you the sketches, like I said, but they're across the hall.
Well, check them out on the Facebook, David Gallo Design.
Yeah.
And it's kind of a who's who of designers you have in that collection, including, of course, Robert Edmond Jones as well, which is very cool.
Yeah, that's a true story. I mean, I was actually in a gallery. Oh, hold on, we got a feedback. I was in a gallery looking through a bunch of scraps of Milziners. And there was there was a folder. I mean, there was one piece that was like really awkwardly matted, and I looked at it and I knew immediately what it was, and I knew it was a Jones and not a Milziner. So I got it for nothing, very little. So,
wow.
Yes.
Speaking of American greats, the late August Wilson, I know, has made a huge impact on your life personally and creatively. Where to even begin with August Wilson and you? I don't even know where to begin. But we can start with a monologue competition that you've been adjudicating for quite a while, that you've been invited to be a judge for. Can you speak a little bit to the National August Wilson Monologue Competition?
I can. First off, I want to show you my phone rest. Wait, what the heck happened? Here. No, wait. Hold on.
There he is.
Yeah, I used the August Wilson box set as my phone rest. And Vivica, sorry, this is Vivica, everybody.
Hello.
Hello. I was listening on the delay.
Vivica used it yesterday as her Skype box.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so
that's very cool. And he would have just turned 75, right?
He was 75 on Monday. Yeah,
Monday.
75 on Monday. So it would have been. Yeah, that would have been it. Hold on, technical difficulties. Oh no. All right. Oh no. Can I see my screen? Just my screen. Anyway, so that's Vivica. This is the. Oh, we were talking about August Wilson. Oh, there was one other thing I wanted to show you. Oh, there we go. So yeah, we have the August Wilson box set here, and then that's my daughter August right there, and me. Mm-hmm. And this is my daughter Citizen, named after the character in Gem of the Ocean. So
amazing.
Yeah, we're like an August Wilson family.
That is great. We have a couple of questions coming in. Karen, who is a third-year scenic design MFA student, we will get to your question about the quarantine and COVID-19 in just a moment. But I did want to touch on Gene Tyson's question. Oh, very nice. Your sugar skull. Gene.
Oh, this is Pride Skull.
Pride Skull.
Yeah,
the Pride Sugar Skull. That's very cool.
Yeah. All right. So sorry. Continue.
You're good. No, not at all. Gene asks, has designing for one medium, as in theater, concerts, film, etc., had a particular influence over your design process for other mediums? So how do the different environments with which you're working in influence the other?
How do the different environments that I work in influence the other? I think that, you know, and I'm going to talk. That's a fantastic question, by the way. And I know this because I don't think I've been asked before, which means I don't have a stock pat answer. So it means I have to make up the answer right now.
The joys of live
I
theater.
might have to email you all later and say I disavowed everything I just said. You know, to me, if I had to say that there's a through line, which is something you have to find, that would be music. I don't think that music has really been missing from very many things at all that I've worked on. And so what has carried from one genre to the next, I think, is an understanding of music and a ability. I have a kind of weird ability to digest music and see it in a way that I think most people can do. And so I think you say to yourself, like, okay, well, what informs your entire life, design, philosophy, influence, all those things? I'm trying to find my stick. Oh, all of those things. And I think that the one through line I would think was music, right? So you know, you got to find a through line. And then you say, okay, well, you have all these different genres, right? So you got musical theater, where you learn, I won't even list them because we don't have time, but you learn certain very particular things about storytelling with that kind of music, and the stories that can be told that haven't been told yet, you know, with that kind of music. You know, and then you start in the world of rock and roll, and you do that sort of thing, and you have a completely different understanding of music. You know, how the process of creating the music itself is in so many ways more important than the song, because it's what it means to the band, and the band are the principal creatives in that particular case. So you're serving a very different master, right? Yeah. And then you've got the music of an August Wilson play, which is unquestionably, each one of them is unquestionably a musical. Not only are they completely informed by music and, you know, and carry music, and half of them are about music, but it was also one of August's greatest influences was the blues. Mm-hmm. And so, you know, you have that. And then I'll just lastly say that, you know, we watched the Seinfeld special last night, and you know, at one point I turned to Vivek and I said, look, he circles back around to this joke. And I thought the genius of that, to be able to get to the point where he could just cap this story off with something that goes back to the beginning. That's the rhythm and the music of the comedy that he's just such a at. So I guess I would say that the simplest answer would be the music is a through line, and so that would be what has influenced me across all of them.
Wonderful. So the musicality reigns supreme throughout.
Well, you know, I guess it kind of has to, right?
Yeah. I know that we have some Sesame Street fans watching. One thing we were talking about on the phone the other day is your affinity for the old school craft, starting with the pencil and paper. And I know that while you've shifted your process into more computerized efforts, Sesame Street, you still started with the pencil and paper, right?
Yeah, you know, that's another thing. Sorry, everybody, for this sort of bad cinematography. I have, for the most part, been interested in old school design work and process. So I usually develop my ideas, you know, drawing by hand. Start out in very simple sketches, and then, you know, work forward from there. And the August Wilson shows, you know, but we've designed or drafted our shows with a computer for many years. But two things that I enjoy drawing by hand is Sesame Street, because I wanted to have that funk, that urban funk to it, you know, so I draw very dramatically with a pencil. My drafting is usually more like a illustration. I have fewer right angles than probably anybody else in this business. I just, you know, whip along. So Sesame Street, in order to get that sort of gritty urban thing, I drew with a pencil. And the August Wilson plays, which I also drew with a pencil. So, you know, play that. And then add all of that at this drafting table, which I've had since the early 90s.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
it's awesome.
Yeah. I mean, I don't even remember your question because I tend to ramble on, but
hey, it's all good. We're just, you know, talking about Sesame Street in general. I know that your daughters have had an influence, and even more than an influence, I should say, on your work with Sesame Street. So maybe you can speak to collaborating with them.
Yeah, you know, a lot of people think it's cute, but I did. My daughters have done lots of stuff for me for Sesame Street. They've complained about it a great deal, but they've been there with me many times in the office, and to the point, you know, had lots of influence to the point where my youngest daughter designed Cinderella's shoe store for Lucy Liu, and was adamant. And actually, she managed to do all the design drawing, and then came to the shop and was quite like, She got that designer tai chi, you know. And she totally nailed it. But I'm telling you, I showed her sketches at the production meeting. I'm not jiving.
Wow,
They were pretty good.
that's awesome.
Good.
Yeah. I know that one special piece of real New York that made it into your Sesame Street design is an old carriage house.
Oh yeah, yeah. I don't really care about the traffic, but that's another thing. All of these things I'm talking about are all on my Facebook page. Yeah, the carriage house was a classic piece of Sesame Street that was a building that I was rather attracted to when I was young. Actually, when I watched the show, it's a beautiful old brick, carriage house, and it's been abandoned in the Arbor area, the back, area of Sesame Street for many, many years. And so when I came in for season 46, which is when we sort of added the generations of urban changes. Sorry, that's a whole separate story. But the carriage house, let's talk about for a second. I got to jump back to the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
When I was hired by Sesame Street to redesign season 46, redesign is not really a fair word. What I was brought in to update things out of a certain necessity. And one of them was the show was on high def. And so the old set was a little ratty. And also there were young people's programming. There was a lot of children's programming that was very, very good and made digitally in Korea. So it was very cheap. And so they felt different ideas. They tried a digital set, which didn't work. And they said, well, let's just come in and, redesign Sesame Street, which is what people said. But we didn't do that. I had a reverence for the show, maybe more than most. And my mother had a reverence for the show that maybe way more than most. And so when I came on board, I felt that the most important thing was to keep it the same neighborhood. And so I sort of added 46 years of changes in urban environments, knocked down buildings, rebuilt them, repurposed the carriage house into a community center. So we caught back into that again. And basically added a greater degree of realism and grime to the street. So, when we talk about Easter eggs, like the set has a tremendous amount of street art now. It's got mosaics because there was a very famous Lower East Side mosaic guy in the 90s. There's a Banksy. There's graffiti everywhere. There's paste up, wheat paste art. It's very funky now. So catching it up a little bit was really what people called redesign. And the single greatest thing that happened was the very first day that we were on set, the guy that's played Bob, he's 90, right? But Bob walked around and he was just like, he was thrilled. He had heard that they were going to change the set and he was like really flipped out. Like the original cast members were like freaked out. And they felt right at home on it. So that, you never get recognition like that.
Yeah, no, that's a pretty high honor. The Bob McGrath staple of approval, right?
I know, right? Weird, but cool. Right?
It's very cool.
Right. Hold on a second. I want to show you something else really cool.
Yeah.
We'll flip.
Loving this tour, by the way. This is a very dynamic presentation.
I would never do this, but it's like there's a disaster going on, and so people are just putting the silliest stuff up, so like why not walk around the house,
Yeah, and this is a time where everyone's kind of becoming one with their home, so to share in with other people's homes is a nice treat.
Would you agree, Vivica? Say hi.
Hi.
Yeah.
Hello.
All right, so this is like one of my favorite things. I have another one next door, the 3 ironers. This is a fake Jacob Lawrence, but it's really, really good. I have all this fake artwork from a play I designed called Stick Fly. It's really cool. And that's where Citizen sleeps sometimes.
Nice.
That's her when she's little. Oh, and I have her. My daughter Citizen is like really into the macabre. She's totally going to be a goth. And so I have all the scary posters in her little cubby cube. This is where August sleeps. That's hers.
Showing some love for the Pixar films in the house.
Yeah, it's August Valentine is Meredith.
Very
anyway.
Cool. So we do have a question from Karen. She's a third-year scenic design MFA student, And she knows this is a broad question, but she asks, during these crazy times, what advice would you give to students who will soon be entering an uncertain work industry?
I'm going to turn around to face you for that, obviously. That's only fair. Wow. You know, ordinarily, I would give a really fancy answer to that about how, you know, you should take the time to like explore and read and all those other things. But, you know, I can sit around here and make videos because I got other things going on. I'm old, you know. But if you're young and entering the workforce, right now, you really do have to adapt, right? I mean, it's about survival. And so that question is really more practical an answer from me now rather than poetic. I think that this time, this isn't even really yet what you asked, but I think this time right now is going to be one of the most creative periods of my lifetime. We will see what comes out of this over the decades. So definitely explore and use the tools that we have. And the one thing that nobody ever has had is time. So try to use that time in order to make something cool. I make dopey videos and stuff like that, but I also do a lot of other stuff. And I know that you all do too. So appreciate the time that you have, but you got to survive career-wise. Wow, practical answers, emergency answers. I just said this morning, I would say that if you love theater, everything I'm going to say from this point forward is assuming that theater will normalize and you will then pursue your career, you know, as a theater designer, or if you want TV or whatever. But survival right now, what can be done remotely? You know, animation, design, anything that can be done, you know, in your home office. If you're going to be entering a field that is traditional to work as an assistant, if you have excellent electronic skills, a lot of people are probably, again, I'm pulling this out of my butt, but a lot of people who do what I do are probably hiring right now. They're looking for another animator or another draftsperson who can finish up a project that's going to be happening in a stadium in Texas 5 years from now. You know what I mean? Like, I'm kind of making this up, but it's true. There's people out there that are probably looking right now for people that can provide certain skills remotely that they need. And I would try to find out those things. That's, you know, I could go on about it more, but I'm not an expert in that. But turn everything into an opportunity. And maybe right now the opportunity is to reach out to some people who ordinarily maybe wouldn't hire you because you're so entry level, but then you go, this is the person that I really need, you know?
Yeah.
So that's a possibility, you know? And then in addition to that, just any way to build the relationships that you have to have. I mean, the standard spiel and how to get a job as a designer is a long spiel I got, but in the end of the day, it's, you know, directors are the only people who hire you. That's it. I mean, very rare, but I can give you stories, but it's a director. And so those relationships are everything.
Absolutely.
So, yeah. So if you go to yourself, like, you know, you have a little bit of time to sit down. And one of the things that young people have such a hard time answering is when I say, you know, what do you want to do? You know, when they go, well, any kind of design, anything. And you're like, well, that's not really true, right? I mean, you really, you know, what is it that you truly want to do? And so, and is that commercial theater or regional theater or experimental theater or immersive theater, or is it whatever? Because I just do whatever. I mean, I'm the guy who does whatever, right? So building what relationships can be built now. Again, who can you approach now and say, hey, so-and-so, I really admire your work, and I'm writing to you just because, you know, there was a really weird time right now, and maybe you got a chance to discuss this or look at this or consider me for this, you know. And people are differently receptive to that right now.
Yeah.
Some people, I think, are encouraging it. Some people are going, oh, man, finally I have a chance to respond to all these young people who keep writing me. And some of them are like, why do these young people keep writing to me? There's a crisis. You know what I mean? So, you know, but if it's 50-50, you're way ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. I know that one way that you've been on your Facebook, again, one way that you've been sort of addressing some questions that have come your way. I think one question in particular started a whole little series for you that you called the Mystery Design Theater 3000, which was really a lot of fun to kind of tune in and converse about a national theater production as it was being streamed on YouTube. Can you speak to the birth of that idea?
Well, I definitely speak to the birth of that idea, but I need you at the end to circle around and encourage me whether or not I should do it again, because we haven't gotten it right yet due to technical issues and perception. Well, what we do, it's easier to start with what we started doing was we started finding these wonderful live broadcasts, not live, sorry, these wonderful high quality broadcasts of live performances that were being provided by all sorts of really high-end institutions. And so you had the National Theatre of Great Britain making extraordinary productions with multi-camera shoots, you know, and high fidelity, people don't say anymore, but you know, high quality sound and all that business. And so I thought, well, if all these opportunities are out there and we all have time, and again, I'd never do this if it weren't for this really weird shit that's going on. We thought, let's all watch them at the same time and basically shout at the screen, which is how I watch television. And by the Facebook chat, we just, as we're all watching the show, we comment on it, you know. And it's, the inspiration came from a television show, which I don't even know if people know anymore, called Mystery Science Theater, which was about a guy trapped on a satellite orbiting the Earth by two evil mad scientists. And he lives with these two robots, and they watch really bad science fiction movies, and they yell stuff at the screen. It's just, again, you can ask Vivica, I yell at the screen. I mean, like, to me, these these are interactive. And since you can't talk in the theater, we could talk while we watch it here. And so I make it sound funny, but these conversations are serious. We don't mock anything. We don't, you know, the work is top notch, obviously, the Royal National Theatre of Great Britain. So that's really what it is. It's just the opportunity to sit and watch a show and talk about it collectively. Now, what hasn't worked is we keep putting it, like, we keep posting it in the wrong thing, and then the comments get spread out amongst a bunch of different threads. The other thing that's happened that's got to be fixed is that people assume that the point of it is for me to do this ongoing commentary, which it's as far from supposed to be. It's supposed to be a conversation amongst everybody.
Right.
So the last time we did it, I didn't participate at all because I was trying, you know, so who knows? Should I do it again?
Well, if you're asking me, my vote is yes, absolutely. I think it's great fun, and you do have a lot of different minds with different levels of experience and different types of experience coming together and offering their insight into the designs of these shows. So I think it's great.
Some really great designers like started showing up and talking about stuff.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
You know, and we're all like really good conceptualists, right? Because we've had some success, I suppose. You know, and we'll go on and on, like, is that a loose pin hinge? No, man, it's, you know, like
right.
The conversation could be about anything.
Well, this is great about the specificity, when you can get into the specificity of certain details, you know.
Yeah, you know, and because you're watching it as a group, and because you're commenting on the internet, you can heckle. Not in a bad way, but you can yell out, you know, I'll bet this is going to happen next. I bet that's going to happen next. You know what I mean? Like, why not?
When are we going to see that trapdoor being used, right?
Exactly. Well, that's what I kept doing during that wonderful Treasure Island, is I just kept going like, okay, there's a trap over there. I can tell something's going to happen. Just, you know, again, for the set designer nerds, just seeing the stage of the Olivier with that double, if you're not familiar with it, the Olivier Theater has this enormous built-in double drum revolve. I won't waste time talking about it. Just Google it. But the Olivier has some stage machinery that's incredible. And the National Theatre production of Frankenstein, you can view that currently streaming on YouTube. Highly recommend to all those watching. That's the next one. Yeah. Absolument. So we're already past the hour, David. I'm confident we could talk an hour alone just about Black Warrior pencils. But yeah, my favorite pencil that they stopped making. Yes. But because we are at this point, I wanna kind of wrap up the conversation with kind of the big question, and I hope it's not too redundant. But what is your hope for the future? I'm sorry, what? No. Wow, that's a really interesting question because the future of what? You mean the future of show business? Future
Well,
of what?
I leave it open on purpose because it's sort of for you to interpret. But if we do want to get a little more specific, let us say the future of the industry, the future of theater.
Can I pretend that coronavirus doesn't exist when I answer this question, or do I have to like come up with a way that people can wear like spacesuits and like go see Broadway movies?
Well, I suppose that is the reality, a possible reality. But let's for the sake of giving everyone a break from the virus that we're inundated with, let's remove the virus from the equation. And in a perfect world, what would your hope for the future of theater be?
Well, I think that one of the things that has interested me the most, I think before it became a thing, is the immersive, what's called immersive, which I believe not a lot of it really truly is. But
It's just like organic, right?
Exactly.
Immersive and organic.
Use the word immersive. I don't use the word immersive, but I do a lot of stuff that people go, "Oh, immersive theater." Because I kind of believe. Well, listen, I understand it. I'm not going to be coy, but I believe that sort of stuff is fairly breakthrough, and we all understand that for reasons again that I won't spend a lot of time on. But it has, I think, had a reverse flow to where now, of course, all Broadway shows are now designed through the prism of off Broadway shows. Where you have this extraordinary thing that you incorporate that you see, downtown maybe, and you start incorporating that kind of work, uptown. So, anyway,
Yeah.
so sorry, I got distracted by a mouse running across my desk. No, I'm just kidding. I think there's a lot of different ways to approach it. So what is the future? I think that is going to influence things more than just about anything else.
And maybe there'll be something about refocusing. I call it refocusing the future, where we go back to the fire. As we talked about on the phone the other day, the Neanderthals gather around a fire and tell stories. Maybe there is some version of the future where we come back to that kind of the simplest form of storytelling too, right?
Well, yeah, I think that's inevitable as well. But yeah, I mean, getting back to, Plato's cave and the shadows, sitting around the fire. I think that there's been a resurgence in an interest in storytelling for the last bunch of years. And I think that can continue to evolve, regardless of how we sort of interact as humans.
Yeah.
So, based on a virus or whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, David and Vivica. Thank you both for being here today. This show was kind of thrown together over the course of a few days. It's still an experiment, and like you said, with the Mystery Design Theater, we still have comments on different platforms trying to kind of streamline all that. But this is a great conversation, and hopefully, if this is a program that evolves beyond the quarantine, we might have a chance to reconnect and dive a little deeper into some of these topics.
I would be happy to do that. I'm fascinated by all of these, different aspects of what it is that we do. And like I say, I could talk about minutia or grander ideas or that stuff. Plus, here I am. I got plenty of time.
Yeah, and I've always considered you to be sort of a scenic design archaeologist of sorts. You are one of the designers that I think most carefully pays attention to the past and surrounds yourself with pieces that kind of inspire the worlds that you create on stage and screen. So thank you for sharing all of your work with the world. It really is a treat.
Sure, I'm happy to. You want to see my desk really fast? I got to plug the shop that built it.
Absolutely, yeah.
Years ago, short version of this is I called Showman Fabricators and I said, guys, I need a conference table. And I want you to make it out of like my old scenery. And they were like, okay. And they said, what do you want the design to be? And I said, look, I'm a designer, so I'm not going to do it. You guys got to figure it out because otherwise I'll obsess. And so they built this table out of my old scenery, but they used like the giant hunks of steel that held the whole thing up, like giant hydraulic cylinder tubes and like all this CNC shit, water jet stuff. So you can't actually lift this table. Like you can't, no matter how hard you try. It weighs tons. So what began as a bit of a practical joke I've sat at for years, and
Wow.
very much appreciated Showman Fabricators for building it for me all that time ago. So
Absolutely. Shout out to our friends at Showman. It is a beautiful desk, very unique. No one else has anything like it.
no, not quite, but they have lighter things.
Did you have this desk in your Midtown studio as well?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
That was what it was made for.
So you've upgraded
yeah.
to quite a bigger space where you are now.
Well, I got to jump around like an idiot with a fake guitar. So
Absolutely.
you know,
Got to get the
job.
priorities straight and create more
For sure.
Rube Goldberg contraptions, right?
Are you familiar with the artist Kara Walker?
Yes. She did the Domino Sugar thing, right?
She did, but she's best known for all those silhouettes. You know, she did those.
Yes, beautiful silhouettes.
All that incredible, like highly racial and sexualized stuff. Yeah. Anyway, so I was at Disney one time, and they have this person that does silhouettes. You know.
Oh, and yes, amazing.
So that's Kara Walker as a Disney silhouette.
That is so cool.
I know. I keep trying to get her to see it, but she.
Wait. So did you like show the silhouettist a portrait of Kara on your phone?
Yeah, I just Googled it and the lady did it.
That's
all
awesome.
right. I gotta sign off.
Yeah, thank you so much for your time, and stay safe and healthy, and we'll see you again soon.
All right, cool. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
All right. Thank you, David, for a great show. And thank you all for tuning in. Shout out to Karen and Christina and Don. Thank you all for watching. Everyone else, thank you all for tuning in. Next week, I keep saying that, on Saturday, this coming Saturday, the 9th, we will be joined by Emmy Award-winning film and television production designer Kalina Ivanov. Very exciting body of work. You can check her out online, and you can also check out the Production Designers Collective, which is a group she co-founded. So we'll be jumping back into the world of film and TV on Saturday. Hope you'll join us then. And we have 5 more shows to be announced shortly. And we'll be wrapping this series at 10 for now. But depending on the responses we get, we might build this into something bigger down the line. So thank you all for your support. Be well, stay safe, stay healthy, and we'll see you on Saturday. Have a great one.